working with this database, blogs.redgate dev Steve. You notice my database icon is green. This is an indicator of the database being linked to source control. So in this case, I'm using Git. And since Git is a distributed source control system, the workflow is that you check in your changes to your local repository first, and then you push those changes to your remote. In this case, everything's set up locally on my machine. So if I go to my setup tab here for this database, you can see that it's currently linked to this local repository that I've linked to. So now I'm going to go to the Commit Changes tab. We shouldn't have any changes to commit at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and start making a couple of changes here. So I'm going to modify one of my objects here. Actually, let's do this one. So here I'd like to replace the select star with actual column names. So here SQL Prompt is another one of our productivity tools that easily gets integrated into SSMS and makes it really easy and fast for you to write SQL. So I'm going to go ahead and select the columns that I want to include as part of this select. And I can also use the formatting feature that comes as part of Prompt to make sure that my code is easy to read and it follows a style that my team has basically committed to. So go ahead and make my change here. And as soon as you make changes to your database object, SQL Source Control will basically show blue blobs next to the objects that are modified. So you can set the polling interval. In this case, I think mine is set up to 20 seconds, but I can easily refresh that by using this option here. So these blue blobs are nice visual indicators of objects that have been changed that you need to check into source control. So if you're working on your own dedicated database, then this will be changes that you've made to your database. But if you're on a shared database, then you can easily see what other objects are being modified by other developers. Going to the commit tab here, you can see exactly what changes you need to commit. If you're working on a shared database, this commit tab would only have the changes made by yourself selected. So I've logged in as this RedGate user here. So and for that reason, this change is already checked for me. So here at the bottom, you can see exactly what's different between the development version of that object and what's in source control already. So you can see exactly how the object definition is being changed as part of this commit. Now, before I make another change, I'd actually like to make a data change to one of my lookup tables. So, if there are solutions out there where you can do that by doing pre-deployments and post-deployment scripts, but with us, we actually integrate this nicely into your actual release and the deployment script. So what you can do with our SQL Source Control solution is to go to other SQL Source Control tasks and say link or unlink static data. This will give you a list of tables that you have on your database, and from there you can select the ones that are considered as reference tables or lookup tables to you. In this case, I have two tables, RSS feeds and country codes that I'm source controlling in terms of data. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a new record in the RSS feed table. Oops. So I'm going to add a new feed. I'm going to call this the Bamboo Demo. All right. So made a data change, added a new record, go back to SQL Source Control, refresh my changes to commit. Now you can see I have a data to also commit to source control. So we keep track of data as insert scripts, as you can see here at the bottom, and we keep track of store procedures or any other object or schema as create scripts. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and commit the source control. Notice that I didn't even have to save any of the scripts that I executed on my development environment. All you need to do is to make your changes and get those changes into source control. So since I'm using Git, here you can see it's giving me the option to also push to my remote repository. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can either do this from within SQL Source Control, or if you're more comfortable with the command line of Git or another Git client tool such as SourceTree, then you can easily do that through those environments as well. So I'm going to go ahead and push this to my master branch. It's the only branch I'm working on. If you have a branching strategy, then you would have to use the Git command line or source tree or any other Git client tool to switch your branches or to merge changes from one branch. I checked in my changes. As part of SQL Source Control, you'll have the option to see a history of changes that you've made. So if I go here and say View History, this will basically show you all the commits that you've done locally to your local repository. So you can see your Git hash, the date, the name, and finally the comments and the files that are affected. And you can see what version it was previously and what it is now as part of that commit that you're looking at. So when I checked in my changes, that actually went ahead and triggered a build. Before I move on to the build side of things, there's a couple of things that I'd also like to point out. So if you're working in a dedicated model where you're working on your own database, this Get Latest feature becomes really handy because this is the feature that you would use to basically pull from the remote changes that have been made by other developers. And once those changes are in your local repository, then you can apply them to your actual development database. So this Get Latest feature is used for those scenarios. I don't need to use this now because I'm really the only person working with this database, and there's no other changes on the database from other folks. So, but if you are working a dedicated model, then this Get Latest feature is what you would use. If you're in a shared model, then we provide this locking mechanism here, so you can easily lock objects. So you can say lock this object, and that will put a lock icon next to it. So whoever's using SQL Source Control, they will see that this object is locked. If they try to execute a change on the database, or on that object, it will throw an error saying that this object is locked. So if you want to see who locked it, you can go to the locking tab, and that would show you the name of the person who's locked it and the date when it was locked. And you can either speak to them, or if you know they're no longer working on it, then you can easily just unlock the selected object.